a very good thing, and I'm gonna be who God called me to be.
All right, fellas, welcome to another episode of Girl Dad Conversations, where we celebrate the joys and challenges of being a dad to amazing daughters. I'm your host, Channing, and I'm here with my wonderful co-hosts, Rich and Ron. Together, we explore the unique experience of fatherhood from a dad's perspective, share valuable insights, and to discuss the important issues that matter both to dads and daughters alike. Let's dive in, gentlemen.
Let's get it.
Let's get it.
All right, so today's conversation, social media and your daughters. So I know for me, I got many stories, many challenges. I'm just curious how you navigate the social media ocean.
You can jump in.
I just miss regular phones. Honestly, like I remember growing up and being on the phone.
Now, are you talking about with the rotary?
That works too.
Okay.
This is just a different world.
The one with the long cord by the kitchen?
Cord by the kitchen, then the cordless one with that lit up blue.
Never get good reception after 5 uses.
Man.
And then
Come on,
my
man.
mama get on the phone saying, "Get off that phone." Yes. Like what happened to that?
So that's the original social
That
media.
is what it
you're saying.
was. Yeah, I missed
Call
that.
waiting? Star 69?
It seems so simple. It seems so it seems so simple, man. Like I don't have social media figured out at all.
Yeah.
It's a part of our life. When I say that, I mean like how to introduce it, right, to my daughters, and when they ask for it, how to respond.
Yeah.
Man, I'm figuring it out for real.
I don't have it figured out.
Yeah,
Yeah. Screen time?
that too.
Like how long, when, to whom,
I'm
contacts?
trying to put it back
Yeah.
on them.
Yeah.
I'm like, how much time? What do you? So I had that screen time. That's a good one with my with both girls. I was like, okay, let's write down what your goals are. Right? What's it going to take you to get to these goals? That's how much, and then whatever time is left in the margins, that's how much time you should use to watch. You have things you want to go accomplish. You can't, they're not going to just happen just because. So one of them wrote it down. She said, I'm going to spend this much time doing this much time doing this, so on and so forth. Now, did that work? No. But, but she knows I'm in control of this time.
Right.
So I'll do with it what I need to.
So let me ask you this then. So there's that portion where they can drive. Sounds like a little bit of time of how they decide how they use it. With all the things that we hear about social media and all the things that are not so great about social media, how do you talk to them about that? How do you help them understand that, number one, everything that you see on there is not true? How do you have the conversation, especially about image, where, a lot of people do all the filters and all these other things, and, they're rich today, not tomorrow, because they're giving you that, the appearance that they are. So how do you start to balance that to say, hey, I want to make sure my girls are safe versus still being able to have a platform to have fun with their friends and enjoy it?
Man, there's so much to cover. We're all over the place with ours. I mean, when you talk about the way imaging and body shaming and all that works, I think that's still a ways away from where we are in our sort of social media journey. Like ours is really starting about, what access to applications they have. I mean, you got Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, or X, or whatever we call it now with your boy who's running that. But we're on that. Like, why are you using certain applications for certain things? And there's a lot of pressure around, even with our middle child, Jaya, around Snapchat, like whose buddies are on it, where their locations are, how to find each other. So it's a part of their social fabric. So we're trying to give her space to make some mistakes. But, like in our house, we say we don't want no fatal errors.
Right.
Like ones you can't recover from. Right?
I like that.
But all the other ones are fair game, right? And so we're just giving her the space to kind of navigate that. And I will give credit to my other half on how we're doing there, right? Because she really pays, close attention to kind of the do's and don'ts and how she's doing that. But we're really just trying to give her some space, really.
Okay.
So not doing too much in terms of the whole, the body shaming and all that. We're not really there yet with our journey. Our journey is which apps do you want?
Right.
Why are you using them? That type of stuff.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe y'all can help me out.
What you got?
So my oldest wants Snapchat. She's headed to high school. That's how they communicate. apparently, and my wife came. Yeah, I guess that's how I say. Apparently, they do that. I guess, but my wife came to me and she was like, she wants Snapchat, right? And how do you feel about that? Which is great, by the way. Shout out to my wife. It's a partnership, right? It's conversation.
Yeah, knowing your wife a little bit, Ron, that was good. She came to talk to you about that. Yeah.
You know, we are a guided front when it comes to the kids.
Good.
For sure.
Okay.
So that helps. And I didn't know how to respond. I responded with questions, like, okay, why does she need it?
Yeah.
Like, you know, what's the conversation you're trying to have? The way I understand Snapchat to be is messages are disappearing. Do you need your messages to disappear? What you talking about that needs to be removed from the universe in some way, shape, or form? Because I'll go find it.
Right. What are you talking about that needs to disappear like that?
Right.
What's happening? What's
right.
going
So
on?
that's how that's how I started responding. And then when my daughter came in, she wasn't going to bring it up to me because they know that, like, certain things they bring to mama, certain things they come to me. And when I was looking at her, I said, we'll talk about it later. I'd love for you to come to me with, why you want to do this, right? And she's used to that. We've done that before. But I will say that in that moment, I was looking at her, and you're reminded of who she is too. You have to remember that when your kids ask you for something.
What do you mean you were reminded of?
Because her character shouldn't necessarily be changed by an app or anything like that.
Okay, yeah.
So my decision making around whether she can or cannot has to incorporate her character. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And that has helped me. The answer, she don't know this, will be yes, you can do it. There's other things I don't know, like my brother, he will need to follow because he knows a lot more about it than I do and stuff like that. He said he would and stuff like that. So, and she's open to that.
Okay.
But I have to factor in the character when making that decision. So the help needed or the question is, like, how you said it's about the app. How do you then decide, it's cool or not?
Yeah, I don't know about the necessarily the cool or not, but they have different fit for purpose, at least the way I see these youngsters using it, right? Like, so my daughter has this thing around Snapchat around her daily streaks. That's super important to her. Super important to her, right? So she maintains streaks with her friends of continuous snaps per day or something. Somebody's going to correct me in the chat and comments on this, right?
Yeah,
I might
absolutely.
have it wrong, right? But that's super important to her.
We don't know.
On Snapchat, right? And then also locations and things like that. So it's like, so that's their connectivity to their friend group in that way.
Yeah.
Then when I see her on Instagram, I see her following things that maybe more her aspire to things, like her skincare regimen and things like that. And so that's kind of her space to do that. So it's like, an interesting way that people might have thought about Facebook back in the day, right? It's your community, it's how you communicate your interests and those different things. Now it seems to be, bifurcated or trifurcated over a whole slew of apps, right? So for us, again, like we think about things like, how are you using these things to influence what you might do in your everyday, right? In terms of your skincare regimen, like, are you doing too much with that? Because we start to see products showing up at the house, right?
We do.
And then how is that? How is that kind of moving you, right? In terms of what you might pay attention to into these apps, right? So that's kind of the way we look at it. It's like, which apps are you using? How are you using them? And what do they mean to you in your day to day as a youngster coming up, right? Because if it's part of your friend group and that's just the way that you network. I'm old school, right? I'm turning into one of them get off my lawn guys, right? Like, so I can't divorce myself from the fact that there was a time and place for the things that I did, and I'm holding those to be truths and values to the ways that they look at things today, because I know that there were things we did as a community that we still rock with heavily, and I have to appreciate that some of these things are that for them, and so I'm trying not to really over-regulate, because I don't understand that. So as long as it's not taking you away from what we think your path should be, and it's not destructive, again, we'll let you participate with it and have some sort of errors, but it's not fatal errors, right? So I don't really have a good answer in terms of, that on Snap, but ours are kind of a multi-app experience, but as long as it's not changing who she is, and, we have those open communication around, what you doing on Instagram? Let me see who you following.
Yeah.
What sort of messages are they feeding you? And then just try to have those conversations. I think it'll be all right.
I got to ask, what would you consider a fatal error?
I think when they can push you into relationships that are not healthy, then you're starting to trend that way, right? Like you could get lured into certain conversations, or you can get lured into certain thoughts about yourself that can become destructive. Like, you know, again, I don't know much about how ads actually work on some of these social media platforms, but as soon as you start typing in, how do I lose weight? Or, you know, I don't like the way my eyes look, or, you know, and then you start to get some concentration on some things that could start off as gentle sort of self-improvement things, but then turn into something kind of this dark rabbit hole type of thing, right? And so that's where it's like, how do we over time have these, you know, conversations around what are you using, what you looking at, who are you talking to type of thing. Not again to be overly policing, but we just got to make sure we don't fall into one of these fatal errors, right? So that's the way I think about it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to look at it and start to, you know, part of the process of how you look at, you know, what's not a great opportunity and what could potentially be. Because we don't want to ignore the fact that, you know, not everybody there is there for, you know,
nefarious sort of reason.
Right, exactly, yeah. And then, you know, so I'm also going to throw this at you, because I think part of it for me is how, you know, I grew up and, you know, being around people, you know, understand how some people operate. So let's say you have these apps and now you're that teenager. You're growing up, thinking about how you grew up, who you grew up with. You now got this app, and now you can go do or operate the way that you would via that app that you might not be able to before the app. So now you think about, oh, I liked some girl, or I was gonna go hang out with some fellas.
So I don't mess with Facebook no more.
So I was gonna go do X, Y, Z. So now put yourself in that situation, saying, okay, now I got the app. How you gonna operate? What is gonna be your way of operating using that app if you put yourself back in that time?
So you're saying using that app as a teenager for me? That's why I don't want to have it.
That's why.
Explain that a little bit.
That's why I'm glad there's no YouTube footage of Rich Neal out there as a young person, right? Like, man, come on.
It's not even that bad.
What would we know about you, Ron, if there was social media available when you was a kid? What things would we know about you today that we don't know?
It'd be boring. It'd be boring because all I did
now, do we need to make a phone call?
I was hooping all the time, man.
Okay.
So it would be that and everything about that, and then
your jumper still whack.
To be fair, I took time off, and I get out there with you, and I tear plantar fascia, bro. Like that's anyway. Yeah, I mean, so I don't know what that would look like. Right, having that kind of access, that's the difference, right? Because it really is like when I was that age, I only had access to certain things, so I did certain things. Right.
And I see he's still dancing around what he did, because he ain't really letting up on that. Right.
Yeah.
That smile gives it away.
Yeah. I mean, I was in a small town in Oklahoma, man. I like at 14, you know. But yeah, that would have been something.
Okay.
That's what I'll say.
Yeah. Okay.
Rich,
yeah, you see my wheels turning. Like, man, I first of all, I don't know if I'm here if social media is available in the same way back then as it is today.
Okay.
Or maybe I'd have made some different decisions. But your question, though, has me thinking about what sort of things am I trying to overlay on my kids' experience based on my own? Right. So the genesis of your question, I think, is that, like, am I over policing or over correcting because of what I think I could have gotten away with then? And to be true, that's a deep question, because I don't know that I don't know if all the conversations I've had before today are steeped in that reality.
Right.
But some of it very much could be. But man, you dropped a gem on me, man. I may have to go back and check tape and see if I'm being too protective around, again, these fatal errors, non-fatal errors, based on what maybe I could have gotten away with even more, or not even be here as a result of social media. So I gotta think about that one. I'll get the answer on that one.
Okay.
That's a deep question, though.
And you know, and as both of you were answering that, I was thinking even for myself, what would that be for me? And probably a lot of it would be, because I mean, I've always felt myself to be kind of a private person. But, you know, every now and then, you know, with the right individual or individuals, you may share a little bit more. So I think to myself, okay, what would I probably have shared that would have been something that got me into trouble? It more than likely would have been related to some females. I don't know if it would have been, easy to make it through, let's say, like college time frame, because you swear you all that and then some. So you're trying to talk and you're like, oh yeah, I'm talking to this person. Oh no, we just friends. Oh, this and this. And you see a lot of that now on social media where people are connecting the dots. And it's like, well, wait a minute. This guy is talking to me, but he's married to the woman over here. I'm not saying I'd go that far, but it opens the door to you meeting a lot more people than you would have without it. And then doing so could easily turn into much more than if it's just, let's say if you're in college or high school, that particular campus. So I think of it from that perspective. It's like, wow, would I have been in more trouble, less trouble? How would we ride that out? So it's something I thought about just quickly. Yeah. And I try to let it go because I don't even want to know where that it would have gone.
I'm definitely only going to go so far. I'll tell you this, though. I think I would have thought I was cooler than I really was. I think that's what would happen because, you get validation through that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of validation can come through social media. So having that kind of access and stuff, I'm like, oh man, these BKs is fly. No, they not, bro. No, they not.
They could have been for the time.
Bro. It could have been,
but you're right. It could have been relative to somebody else though.
That's what
because you're wearing the BK and Rich may have on a pair of Nike. He's looking at him like, man, them ain't hot.
All day,
right?
J's all day.
Even then,
you
didn't have the pump ups, the Reebok pumps.
I did have. Well, I used to go. I would go off brand. That's
an off brand.
Yeah,
I remember that being $100 in my mama.
But just because I didn't say I had them. That's a whole different episode around the halves of growing up and the aspire to, right? The pictures on the wall of Jordan, the picture on the wall of all the shoes. But anyway, I probably would have not dabbled down that path of the Reeboks, but I knew they was out there.
I knew I was jumping higher.
But yeah, we were talking about maybe more of a darker place and kind of what we maybe are looking out for through our own lived experience. But I'd also say some good too, like because my daughter, she pulled up the Snapchat app and we was at a mall and she could see the friends that were there. And if the friends are there, the parents are there, I'm like, you can get a ride home with them.
What's more?
So there's some goodness. There's a goodness to these opportunities with the apps and these locations and knowing where people are. So it ain't. It's definitely not all bad.
Right, I agree.
Definitely not all bad. Right. There's definitely some good scenarios out there.
So let me ask you this then, because I know we went through this a little bit. When you sit down, go out to dinner, you sit down, and everybody's doing this. Everybody's in their phone. And you really want to turn that into, hey, let's catch up. Let's see what everybody's doing. Let's have a conversation. And for kids, that is, living their life on their phone is different. We didn't live our life on the phone. We're starting to now as adults, but, we didn't grow up with it like that. So how do you start to change that a little bit to say, hey, there's no problem with you doing that, but also your family, your friends were right here in front of you. Let's experience that as well.
That's a quick one for me. There's no phones at the table for dinner. At our house, period. Okay. No discussions.
Same.
We went so far as even have a bowl.
Oh, okay.
In a bowl. Okay. Come down to the dinner table. Again, we strive for progress, not perfection. So there's some occasions where youngsters show up with the table with the phone. Even sometimes I get called out. Showing up. Right? Dinner time's around 6:30 or so. I might get off a call at like 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm stumbling downstairs, scrolling through. I want to catch up on my Insta feed and some other things or whatever, and I get called out. But that part of it, though, is also some give and take accountability, right?
Right.
We all know that we're not supposed to do it, but it's good comfort and check and balance. Hey, Dad, so it's no phones, right, Pops?
Right.
Or Jay or Maya, no phones, throw them in the bowl, right? But so for me, it's a simple answer. Like, for us to get connected, that's our time where we check in with each other, see how our days went, wins, losses, those sorts of things. So that is a no phone zone at dinner. So that's our space. But
got it.
I know.
Same.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Dinner time is we sit down together, no phones. I think the hard part is when you're away from the dinner table, right? Like, is there intentional time that you're spending together when you're not at the table? And the hard balance sometimes for me is like feeling like if we don't have something planned, right? Like that we're going to go do, then this is just how we fill our time.
Yeah.
And so everybody just kind of does it. And how do you not need plans to still stay off of the device,
Right.
and give yourself space to be creative and stuff, like, and do other things that you enjoy, right? And that's a hard one.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, that's hard. Because if it isn't intentional, then it's like, we all say, what isn't prohibited is permitted. So if there's not a rule against it, then
you just
there's
do
an
it.
opportunity, right?
So you get hours.
That's a tough one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hours and hours, and we talk about, like, you hear about how bad it is, and so in so many ways you talk about some positives, and there it is both.
Right.
But yeah, like you could easily lose hours
Yeah.
or use hours,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
right, in that space, and that's social media, that's Netflix, that's anything. Like, I'm caught up on some things that I'm like, I can't get that time back.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you talk about that balance, right? Like, because it's not all bad, it's not all good. What would fill that time? Like, I think about us as youngsters. Like, there wasn't social media, so
Right.
when we could do good and when we could do bad, like, what was our filler?
Well, a lot of times it was our friends who we may hang out with.
That's it.
Oftentimes,
Which is social media.
right? Except you had to be in person to be social. It wasn't,
Fair.
and family. I mean, oftentimes you had some cousins that were around. If you had siblings, you fill time, that way. Other than that, at least for me, I'm gonna speak for me. I got chores to do, so I had plenty of fillers. If there was a gap somewhere, it's like,
You didn't play video games though, Tanner?
I did,
Okay.
but I didn't as much as probably I do now. So I had a friend that would have the latest, greatest, and I play it maybe 2 times, and I'm good. And I had my own Atari. I had all those. A few times, I'm good. I was too busy trying to figure out how do you program it on the back end. So that was kind of my thing. I was like, all right,
That's
I
Chan.
see,
That's you. Yeah,
I
was
see
trying to
this.
figure that out.
How did you
How's that
get
make
there?
that work?
I was trying to
Right.
beat the game. That's what I was trying to do.
Literally.
Literally beat the game. That was it. Any game that was in front of me.
Yeah, I mean, I had fun beating a few games, and then after that, to me, it was kind of all right.
How's it
What's
work?
next? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because I wonder if in those spaces, those hours of filler that you might have that you think is less than positive, what do you offer to them as an alternative?
But then that's the point. Like, I got to offer it.
Yeah.
yeah.
And is that how that should really be?
Yeah.
That's
Or
the thing.
Or is that Ron at 18 trying to figure out how to fill that time versus the youngsters at their age, right?
So it's
that's not cool.
Yeah, because I mean, now if you think about it, now it's that appetite of always being entertained, at least in our
And that's-
household. And so
very much so.
what we found, so we do. So if we're at the table, and I used to do this. If we're at the table, everybody has their phone, they're looking at it, I will text everybody, put your phone down. And so then, of course, that gets a reaction.
Yeah.
But then what we also started doing is during that time, figuring out what game we're going to play as a family. Like, Chutes and Ladders or whatever. So that even after that meal, there's still more time to be together and not be overly focused on your phone or your device. And so that worked for us pretty good for a while until everybody's schedule changed. And we used to also do Saturday breakfast together, but that died. That fizzled quick because I wanted everybody to get up too early. So they were like, "You'll be down there by yourself," So we kind of had to let that go. But we try to do different things together to say, "Hey, this is important," but try to do less of "let me entertain you," because with young ones, they'll let you entertain them all day if you just up and do it.
and they want that time.
Yeah, right.
They want that time.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I find that true too. Like the kids, we're at a window where we're still cool to them.
Yeah.
It's closing.
Preach. And so, finding those things that can fill that time with them while they still want it is valuable to me. Right?
Yeah.
But I got a game for you too that you might want to play with.
Okay.
Like our kids are, for whatever reason, they're fascinated about life before me being married to my wife. Right.
Oh.
So we always play this game of tell me about a time when.
Okay.
Right. And
I
we'll
like
go
that.
around the table and everyone gets to finish the question. Right. So. Tell me about a time when you played your first basketball game, Dad.
Oh,
And then
I like
Mom will
that.
pick something. Tell me about a time that, and they'll even have to answer, right? The question. and it's entertaining, and they're always sitting there waiting for what the answer might be. But for whatever reason, they're fascinated about life before they were on this earth.
My daughter thinks me, that we were from, what did she say? Did they have color TV when you were? It's like, yeah, we had that. And then she always thinks, so how many horses did you have?
My.
Sweetheart, we had cars. Didn't have to have horses. And then now, here's the one I do love, though, because she always loves to throw this one out there. Because Mom will always say, Dad's not cool. And then my youngest will be like, Dad is the coolest. What are you talking about? You're the one not cool. So I eat that up. I'm like, see, there we go.
And you sit up straight, you like,
right. And I think to myself, let's see how long that's going to last. Because at some point, I'm not going to be so cool. So I got to eat it up now.
You're not going to be.
No, I'm nowhere near it.
I've embraced my not coolness. In fact, that's what makes me cool. That's how I roll.
That's a game changer right
That's
there.
a game changer, man. Yeah, man.
I embrace the fact that I'm not cool.
Yeah.
And that's what actually makes me cool.
That's right.
I think that's what Rich.
That's a declarative statement.
But I think that's
you are
what
the question answer and the answerer.
I think you mentioned that last night about how uncool Ron was. So
there he goes.
I embrace it though. Hey, man.
With it.
Hey, we were trying to get a minivan.
We had minivan stories. Another one for another one. Yeah.
So I'll kind of close this out here a little bit. So I'm curious, when we talk about our girls' social media, I mean, we've had fun talking about a number of things. What would you close it out with? What would you share with the audience to keep it top of mind when it comes to social media, girls, young ladies, and I mean even for ourselves? I mean, and your family. I'm
gonna kick it to Ron.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
You see that?
Yeah, that was impressive.
That was that transition real quick.
There's trust that we should show in the character of our kids, and we talked about that as well. So when you come to decision making around that, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Right. All of us are playing a big role in bringing up wonderful young women. Mm-hmm. So we got to remember that, and they're in a different environment than we were.
Yeah.
That's the reality. So I love what you talked about, right? Like, are we taking our own, I'm going to use this word, it's probably wrong, but own shackles and putting them on our children, right? Because of how they've impacted us. And the reality is probably, and so trusting what we've put inside of our kids and who they are from their, whatever influences they have to get to this point, I think is important. When it comes to decision making around should you or can you, be on this app or not. So that's what's definitely resonated with me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, mine's something similar, but maybe a little simpler. Don't become a hater in your kids' eyes. Right? Just straight up, don't be a gatekeeper. Right? Be curious. If they're coming to you around, hey, I want to try this app or I want to go through this experience. Let them dabble with it. Let them try those first experiences out and monitor and have conversations, but don't be a hater, right? Life is different, than when we were kids, right? Absolutely. Don't be that, back in my day, ain't no youngster want to hear that.
Right.
And you won't continue to be someone that they seek for counsel and advice, right? Social media platforms or otherwise. So just don't be a hater in your kids' eyes, right? Yeah. Stay curious.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot because as we get more mature, I'll say, it's hard to be curious, but the way that I approach it is tell me more about the app. Explain it to me when they show me something. And, I don't know a lot about it. Say, show me how that works. So I try to, become part of the experience and not just to say go off and do or and leave it alone. Now I don't go and join, but, I check in and see how are things going. What's new? Yeah, what's new now? Yeah, we got others that do.
Outsource
it. Right, but I agree, and so I think as long as we're staying mindful of those things and trusting our young ladies, which I know we can definitely do, I think we all put ourselves in a good place, and that was something I'd leave our audience with. Have that trust, empower your young ladies, and be there for them. All right, fellas, appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we'll call this a wrap on our girl-dad conversations, and we'll come back next week. We won't share the topic. You have to come back to see what we talk about next week.
There you go.
Right on.
All right.
Appreciate y'all.
And I'm gonna be who God